Hello, everyone. Hi, this is Robin from Center Street Decor SVGs. We're doing another painting tutorial today, and I wanted to hop on and share this with you. So I'm pretty excited. We are going to paint our pumpkins and our gourds. So I've already done some samples. So I'm going to show you the pumpkin. So this is our chunky pumpkin. It will stand up all by itself on a shelf. And if you look really close, we've got these are scored, all these little images. So they cut really quickly. We've got some, I'm trying to think of what you call this, wheat. They're just like wheat and then just various leaves and flowers. And this is what the design that's on our pumpkin. And the pumpkin, this is actually all comes in a set, the pumpkins and the gourds. So this is a big set to work with, and it's fantastic. So this is the largest pumpkin. Let me tell you the size. So approximately 5.5 inches is, and of course, when you have the SVG file, you can make it any size you want. But this one, I've done the sizing for you in the file, but again, you can size it up to any size you want. You can size it up to be a door hanger. If you have a big laser, you can do that. So this is the 5.5, the large, and then we have the medium. And look how fun! I decided to do one orange and one white. This one you can see the score lines much better. You can see them actually really well on this, but I don't know on camera if you could see them very well. But I can see on the camera, I can see the white ones really, really well. I think they look great. So this is the second size. This is about 4.5. And then we have our small size right here. And they come with all the different tags. So there are 4 different tag phrases. And now let me show you the gourds or squash. Some people just call it a squash. We've got our squash right here. So here is our big squash, and it has, again, an engraving on it. It's not engraved, it's scored. So I'm reminding it's not engraved. So scoring goes so much faster than engraving, as you know. And so I fix the lines so that they are engraved on the file. So this is the largest, and I think it's a little taller actually. So on the squash, I made it about 6.5. So sorry, just banged my ruler on the metal, my metal light. Okay, so 6.5. And then here's the next size. So, and these I painted all the same. And then we've got our small size. So these all come in the set together. So the pumpkins, or sorry, the gourds or the squash and the pumpkins, they all come in the same file. And there's 4 different file names. And I'm going to tip you down, or 4 different tag names. I'm going to tip you down, and I'll show you the tag names. That might be a little bit easier. So I'm going to flip my camera down a little bit so you can see. Let's see, which way do I want to go? I want to go this way a little bit more. Okay. There we go. Get my little readers on. Okay, so let me show you the 4 tag names. So we have the Oh My Gourd. We have Give Thanks. And the tags, there's 4 different names, but they come in 3 different sizes. And then we have this one, Give Thanks. And then the last one, Welcome Fall. So if you can see that. So the tags actually come in, so the 4 different names I told you, and then they come in the 3 different sizes. So like large, medium, and small. So you can see the size different in the tags there. Oh, pumpkin season. 1, 2, oh, these are the same, aren't they? Did I say that twice? Give thanks. Pumpkin season, welcome fall, give thanks, and oh my gourd, which probably would just go on the gourd best. I don't know if you would put it on the pumpkin. Maybe. Is a pumpkin a gourd? I don't know. I don't know. But that's what we're going to paint up today. And I've already started the pumpkin. So I'm just going to kind of push these off to the side. And I've already started my pumpkin. So you can still see those scoring lines, and that's what you want to do. You want to still be able to see all those lines. So I painted that, just done all the base coat, and then I have the base coat of this one. So remember, with my chunky shelf sitters, I stack them in 3 different layers so they will be tall. This is a 1/4 inch, approximately a 1/4 inch plywood that I use. And then we have the middle layer. So we have the top layer, the middle layer, and then the back layer. The back layer I've already used, and you guys know I like to finish off the back with just a baby wipe and some burnt umber paint just to give it a finished look. So, and that's optional. So these 3 layers together are going to make your chunky shelf sitter, and they are going to stand all by itself. Okay, so that's what makes it a chunky shelf sitter. So let's go ahead. I'm showing you the paints that I'm going to use. So on this one, this is Tangelo Orange, the Americana paint. And then I used just the burnt umber for the top. And then to do my my shadow, I'll use burnt umber, and then I'll also use a little bit of this antique parchment for the highlights. If you can see some of the highlights on here, that's what we're going to do to finish that off. Okay, but on the gourd, on this one, we're going to use King's Gold, and then I'm going to throw in a green. It's going to throw you off, and you're going to think, why are you using a green? But we're just going to add just a little bit. So I'm going to pick this up and bring it close and see if you can see some of the green. It's just subtle. We just are going to sponge on just a little bit of green. Okay. And then we'll use a little bit of the burnt umber to do our shading, and then the antique parchment again to give us our little highlights on here. So, oh, and I did use this fawn color on the tag here. So that's the only place the fawn was used. And then on the gourds, I actually used the antique parchment. So just an ivory color. So they paint up super quick and easy. Most of probably all of my chunky shelf sitters, they paint up really quick. When you're watching me, of course, I do a lot of talking, lots of talking going on. And so then it just seems like it takes longer. But if you were to do several of these at a time, you would see that they don't take much time at all. Okay, so I have this sponge. If you've ever seen these sponges, they actually come round. And I just buy these on Amazon. And this is one of the sponges that I like to do. I use the 2 different sponges. These makeup sponges, and then I really like these because you can get just little tiny round spots. Not spots. That's probably not a really good definition, but I can just generalize it in a little area instead of using like more of a rectangle shape. I pounce on it here, and it's just more of a round surface area. So this is what I do with these sponges. They come round, and then I just cut bits and pieces off, so they last a long time. And you could wash these if you wanted, but I usually just throw them away. So, but it's up to you. So I am going to do the sponge work, and you can use either sponge to do the solid color. I'm actually just going to go ahead and use this sponge to do the background, and then I'll bring this sponge in just a minute. Okay, so let's do our King's Gold. And I like to have a poker tool handy in case I go in some of those little scored areas. Then I can just kind of quickly clean it out before the paint dries. So sometimes I Sometimes I need it and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm careful enough that I don't need it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just kind of start pouncing on the top. And I actually, if I'm really gentle, I can just start rubbing this across the top. So it's kind of another way of painting. It's a little quicker way than just taking the time to pounce, but you have to be really careful. It's just a light touch. I usually pounce it first in like a solid area, and then I'll come to where these scored lines are. And then I'm just going to rub gently over the top of that. Being careful not to squish it or mush it into those scored lines. Look how quick it paints up, really quick. And you might only need to give this one coat, one or two coats, whichever you like to do. I don't worry about going over the stem because I will paint that over with the brown. Okay, so just that's it. And then if you see some areas that you need to get in, I've got a little bit of, this is just plywood and it's not perfect. So I had a piece that I had to kind of rip off there. So don't be afraid to try this technique of just rubbing the paint on. But again, just go very gentle. So don't think you have to go, you know, you have to have a lot of paint, just a little paint and just swiping over it, very gentle with very little pressure. Okay. And it gives pretty good coverage. In fact, I don't think I'm even going to do another coat. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. But I think that that's really good coverage. Okay. We're just going to let that dry for a minute. And while that's drying, let's start doing some of our shading. And you guys have seen me do shading a lot. So the technique is always the same. So I just get an angled brush. I use various sizes. This time I'm just using kind of a smaller edge and an angled brush. So I get it wet and then I tap it on my paper towel just to absorb most of the water. Put just the tip, the longer tip, into the brown paint. Whoop, I didn't want that to fall over in there. Okay, and then I'm just going to rub just straight strokes. Okay. And then I'm just going to go across the edge. And you need more water, but not a ton of water. So each time I can kind of see I'm running out of water. I'll just get it a little bit damp, maybe pick up a little bit more paint if I need to. And just do a long stroke. And I'm just going to kind of go all the way around the perimeter. Okay, no water, pick up water. If there's no moisture on my brush, I'll pick up some moisture, just kind of start where I left off. Okay. So now that I have the perimeter, so now I'm going to go ahead and go on the inside of the lines. Just going to kind of follow that line. Need some moisture. And you see I didn't even pick up the paint that time because I knew I had some paint on my brush. So I just knew it just needed some moisture. Okay, I'm going to flip this around because this is probably still just a little bit wet. Okay, see how I run out of paint because my brush is dry. Picking up, but there's still a little bit of paint on my brush. So that's why I didn't dip it into the paint. Okay, now I'm going to do the outside edge. You can see I kind of came over the line there, but don't worry. We're going to go across this outside edge too. So it's going to kind of blend. So don't freak out if you think you're not staying perfectly in the lines, or don't worry about it. You're going to be a good painter. And I'm not a professional. I've been painting for a lot of years, but you just kind of develop just some techniques of what work. You see, I'm running out of water. I need more water. I'll get a little bit more paint this time because I want it to blend on that outside edge. And sometimes my painting is more heavy on one side than the other, and that's okay. I'm kind of, when I do my shading and my highlighting, I'm kind of a heavy shader and heavy highlighter. That's just the way I like to do. I just really like that highlighting to show up. But on some projects that I do, I use much less paint. Like, for example, if you saw the sneak peek of my angels, and I'll show you in just a minute. If you saw my angels that I painted, and they are in the Etsy shop, here's my little angel right here. If you saw my angel, you can see that her shadowing is just very faint. And I did that on purpose because I wanted a faint shadow. So you can go a lot or a little. I will be doing a tutorial on a little angel. Probably I'll get to it next week. Next week I'll start painting my Christmas SVG files. So this is one of the first Christmas ones that's available. I have have some ornaments in the shop, but this angel is my first chunky Christmas, and I have so many designs coming up. Okay, so that's finished right here. The only other shading I will do, and while I have this brush, I'm going to paint the top again. It looks like it just needs a little bit of paint. So I'm going straight in with paint. I'm not trying to float this. I want a solid paint. So I'm just painting the tip. Okay, so now I'll come back to this. We'll set that aside. We'll come back to our little gourd, and we're going to go ahead and add, this is where we're going to add a grain. Now this paint is really thick, and I don't like it really thick. I don't know if it's just really old and that's how it is, because I have had some of my paints a long time. You see how thick and clumpy that is? Yeah, I like it not that thick, but it's still doable. If you have paints like that, you can still work with it. So this is where I'm going to grab my yellow sponge, the piece that I cut off. Okay, and I'm just going to smush it in that and rub some of that off. So just as if I was to dampen here, this time I needed to kind of smush it. Okay, and I might even need to come on my paper towel and smush it on there because I want a little bit of paint, not a lot of paint. And this is where I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to tap. Just tap in random spots. And if you see it's too thick, like there's like a big clump there, just go back in. Maybe you need to take some more paint off. Okay, so I'm just going to go in just random spots. Just tapping it. You can see I've got some areas are really kind of clumpy, but it's okay. I'm not going to worry about it because it's gonna all blend in. And I'll show you why it's going to blend in. In just a minute, I'll show you. Oh, see, that looks much better. So it's hard to find just the right amount of paint, but you just keep going for it. So you can do as much green or as little green as you want. And I like to go over these edges a little bit. And if you get too heavy with your green, I'm going to show you the trick. And that's the trick I'm going to show you in just a second. So we're going to get our green. Okay, so we're going to set that aside. Let's get the scissors and cut off another piece. And like I said, you can clean these off if you want to underwater. Just try to do it before they dry. So, okay, so now what I'll do is if you see some areas and you think, oh my gosh, just too much green right there, no problem. Now we're going to go back in the color that we painted this with. And now I'm going to go over some of those areas that I thought, oh, that's just way too much green. And now we're just going to go over them, and it's like we're going to hide some of that green. Some of that green still pokes through in that area, but yet it's not quite as stark as it was. I don't know if you can see the difference, but some of those bright green little spot areas, because we went in with the same color over the top of our base coat, now that bright green is not going, hey, I'm here. We just want it to be as subtle. And if there's still too much green, then what you can do is let it dry, let this coat dry again, and then go over it again, okay? So if you still think there's too much green, go over it again. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I think that looks good. I've got a lot of green peeking out, but mostly it's just a little bit of just a little bit here and there. So now this is ready, once it dries, to start doing our shadow like we did on this pumpkin. Okay, so while that's drying, I can actually go ahead and paint the stem. So, and I'm just using the burnt umber color. I'm using the same color that I do the shadow with. And that will probably need 2 coats. So we're just gonna put it aside and let it dry. And you know, I don't even think I use this stylus to clean up any edges or any of the scoring lines. I don't think that we needed to do that. But sometimes I do, so I have it handy whenever I need to clean up any of those lines. Okay, so this is ready to do a little bit of highlighting. I need to come away from that green. It's still a little bit wet. The green that's on the paper towel. We're going to come in with the antique parchment. And when it's fall, I usually like to do more of a cream color. But if you could see on this pumpkin, I did paint this white. I wanted it white. And then I came in and still did my my shadows with the burnt umber. So, but you can do it cream if you wanted more of a cream colored pumpkin. Okay, so where I'm going to do my shadow on this is I'm going to come, if you could look on here, I just came across the top underneath that stem, and then I'm just going to go across the top of the stem. So we're doing some highlighting now, just giving it a little bit of contrast. And again, same method, and I've just been using the same brush this whole time. Other than sponges, this is the only brush that I've been using. So I rinsed it off good, and I'm going to dip the top corner into the white paint. I think I need to, yeah, I did that. I'm going to just dip the top corner, and if you can see this better with white or a cream color than you can the brown. So you can see I just have a little bit of paint on there, on the tip of that. And I just kind of flatten my brush down and then just drag it. Okay, and that just kind of blends and kind of makes a bit of an ombre, and that's kind of what you're going for. So I'm actually just starting on this edge and coming up. And I waited too long. You can see, if you can see, my brush is pretty dry now. Okay, so I need some moisture on there. not going to pick up any paint. You see how that blends it? I grab a little bit of water and all of a sudden it just blends because it needed some moisture. It was thirsty. Okay. And I should have done the top of the stem first because now I have to wait for the bottom one to dry. Otherwise, if I go across the top now, I'll wipe away that shading that I just did, or highlighting. I try to think of the lighter color as a highlight and the darker color as a shading or a shadow. Okay, so I'm going to wait to do the shadow on this before I do the highlighting. And it doesn't take very long to dry, so I think I can go ahead and just tip it just across the top of that, and then that's it. So the only thing we need left to do on this pumpkin is to do a little bit of the highlights around the center. And if you want to just paint your pumpkin just a solid and not do shadow or highlights, you can. You don't have to do shadows. You don't have to do highlights. You can keep them solid if you want. And that's fun too. They still look really fun. Okay, I think this is still a little bit wet. So because I'm ready to do the highlighting, not the highlighting, the shading, when I'm still ready to do the brown, I'm going to say brown. So I need to dry it. When you're ready to do your shading or your highlighting, you want the underneath color to be dry. Otherwise, you're just blending and mixing colors. Okay, so again, I'm just going to start pulling the color. And I don't have much water on my brush. Pick up a little bit of color again. Around the edges. And anytime your brush feels, it looks like it's dry, like the paint is like streaking, I guess, if that's, it looks like it's just not flowing, like it's skipping, almost like the paint is skipping, then you might need some water in your brush. And you'll find with different paintbrushes, some brushes hold water really good and some brushes don't. Like this one is not, it seems to dry out quick, but you don't want too much water. Too much water just makes kind of a watery mess. And that's not the look I'm going for today. Okay, now we're ready to do these lines. And you've seen me, if you've watched my tutorials, you've seen me doing the shadowing many a times. Okay, a little bit dry. I'm just going to pick up some water and see if I can still pull that color down. You can see I often dip into the water because water really helps it to blend. Okay, I'm going to flip it around because I like to pull it toward me more often than pushing. Sometimes I push, but for the most part, I pull the color toward me. That's how I like to work. Pull the color. And I'm running out of water. And you see I did flip it over because there was a little paint on the other side, but I'm going to get some water. And now I'm just going to kind of blend that paint that's on there. If you can do it really quickly without it drying, you can blend it. Okay, one more line to do. Picked up too much on the corner. So it was like my whole brush had brown on it, and you only want like half of your brush to have the color, if that makes sense. And right here I want to blend a little bit more because I can see kind of a brown line there. So I wanted it to blend just a little bit more. Sometimes if I get a water line, like if I have too much water on my brush, you will see like a water line after it dries. And what I do is I will clean my brush, dip it in some water, and just try to clean up that water line so it's not so solid. So sometimes that happens. So if it happens to you and you're wondering, why is this happening? It does, it happens to me too. You know, it's just sometimes one of those things that I'll have, like if I look at this really close, I can actually see the line right here where my brush started and stopped. And if you can avoid that, it's great. And sometimes you can clean it up after it's dry. So I think I actually just cleaned up that little line. And sometimes it's almost so subtle that nobody would notice it except for you. Sometimes we're our own worst critic, right? We see things and we think, oh, it looks horrible. And you might think that when you first start, if you haven't ever done this kind of painting before, you might think of that. But don't you worry, somebody else is going to look at it and go, it looks fantastic, it looks great. They're not going to see your flaws like you see your flaws. You can do this. You can do this painting. Just takes a little bit of practice. Just because I've been doing it for a lot of years, it doesn't mean that even if you just start and pick up a paintbrush tomorrow, you know, you can still be really good at it. Just practice. Okay, so we're just doing our highlighting around here. And again, I forgot to do the stem, but I have enough room to just go over the top of that stem right there. There. Okay, so the last bit of painting we want to do is we want to add some highlights. I've done a couple different ways. I've used sponges to add just a little bit of sponging, but I've also used a stipple brush like this one here. And so that's what we're going to use today. And this hasn't even been cleaned. There's still paint in there. It's dry, but it's okay. So I'm going to dip it in the paint, and then I'm just going to pounce off as much as I can. And now I'm going to rub off as much as I can now on my paper towel, because you almost want no paint at all. You want some, but not very much. And it's better to rub off more than you think. You know, it's better to have less and go over it a couple of times. Okay, so once I feel like I have as much as that white off, if I rub, I can still see a little bit of white. I want a little bit, but but not a lot. Okay. And you can go kind of in a circle. I'm just going to rub gently back and forth on this. And you can see that it's just subtle. And I'm actually going to come just down the sides a little bit. Just adding kind of a little bit more highlights. And don't think, oh, it just doesn't look perfect. You know what? If I looked at this, I could pick out things on here that I maybe didn't like, but you might think, it looks great. I don't see any flaws. We're our own worst critic, but don't be like that. You can do this. Okay, so I'm just going to rub on here. And again, there's almost no paint. So what I'm thinking is if the light's shining on this, since this is the middle part, I think this, like on an actual squash, this is probably going to have a lot of light, and then down here might have a lot of light. And then I might maybe just do a little bit on these sides as well. And again, there's almost nothing on this brush. And that's why I can go back over it a few times. And that's what you want. You want almost nothing on this brush. So if I look at these, I think the highlighting on here is better than here because I can see a few of the heavier streaks when I first started, but it's still going to look great. It looks fantastic. Okay, so that's it, you guys. This is our pumpkin and our gourd finished painting. All done. So now what we need to do is we're just going to glue it together. So I've already made my little tags. I put these together. And if you've watched my videos, you've seen how I've done these tags. Just really simple. And what I did on the back, and I'm going to show you here, is I want this tag to be lifted off. If I turn this, let's see if I can turn it so you can see. The tag is actually lifted off of the pumpkin, so it just gives it a little bit more dimension, and that's the look I was going for. If you want the tag to be right next to the pumpkin, you know, that's great too. It would look very cute that way, but for me, I just wanted to lift it up, to raise it off my pumpkin, just to give that dimension. And so what I do is I just use just scrap pieces that come out of the laser. And these were from the acorn. If you saw the acorn video, you saw that the top of the acorn had, let me see if I get that. The top of the acorn had these little pieces right here on the leopard print. And so I just saved some of those. So what I do, let me show you. If I have like little bigger pieces that come out, I just save some of those pieces and I just use them. I put them in a little cup, and these are just dollar store cups, and I put the lid on them, and I just save them for whenever I need what I call a riser. So these pieces are going to lift it off of our acorn, or not our acorn. I just talked about the acorn, our pumpkin, and then our gourd. And so I use the small tag, the small Welcome Fall, and then I use the medium size tag for this one, because this is the small, and then this is the medium size, little medium size gourd. Okay, so all we need to do now is to finalize is the gluing. That's it. We're going to just glue this together. Got some glue goobers on that. Okay, we're just going to put it together. I'm going to make sure that's the back so I don't accidentally glue, because I haven't done anything with the middle piece. Oh, you guys, I have been designing some Christmas chunky shelf sitters, and I'm so excited to share with you. Still in the works, of course. So just make sure this lines up really good. And then once it lines up good, I'm just going to give some nice firm pressure. Hold it for about 15-20 seconds, just so that that can really adhere. And then I'll put some glue on the top piece here. Let's put the pumpkin on top. Line it up. Make sure you're lined up because you want it to be able to stand up all by itself, which that's what you want it to do. But you also want it lined up so it looks nice and neat too. And every once in a while you will get, this is plywood, 1/4-inch plywood. We buy it from Home Depot. So every once in a while you'll get a piece that's a little bit bowed. So if you do, you can still glue the two pieces together, but you can see they need a little bit extra time to hold it together because it wants to bow. It's natural. Let's glue these pieces together. Here's the back. Here's the middle, making sure you get the back to the front. They will fit together much better that way. Just feel with your fingers that everything is lining up. And sometimes when you have really fun shapes like this, you do, with that stick fast glue, you have a few seconds to work. Okay, once it looks good, firm pressure. I have a sneak peek of something that I'm going to be painting tomorrow. It's a new file. You haven't seen it yet, so stay tuned. I can't wait to show you. I'm going to show you as soon as we get these finished. I showed you the angels, and the angels are available. The angels have 3 different sizes. There's like a large, a medium, and a small. And there are 4 different tags in the angels. So the angels, they're just a single word on the tags. There's peace, let's see, peace, joy, hope, and love. So it's a wonderful gift to give someone at Christmas time. An angel is a wonderful thing to give someone who just feels like they need to have an angel around them. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to do before I put the tag on is I like to use a marker. This is just a furniture marker from Dollar Tree, which I need to go to the Dollar Tree and get some more. They come in a pack of 3, but there are 3 different colors. There's black, brown, and like a burgundy color, which I never use on my wood. Sometimes I use the brown, but it doesn't always cover as well as this black. And so once the nib, I don't know if you can see how messy this nib is, it just starts to not work as well. And I've had this quite a while, but I use this almost every day. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around any edges that just need a little bit of cleaned up. So this ink, this marker is almost gone. This is probably my favorite marker to use lately. I've used furniture markers. I bought more expensive markers to use, but this has by far been my favorite to use. Maybe because it's inexpensive. I like the coverage. If there's any areas where your wood didn't match up, I don't know if you can see, the wood didn't match up perfectly. I do that too. So if you do that, I do that too. So sometimes I'll just take my marker in here, which this marker is really just done. I'm going to go to the Dollar Tree tomorrow and buy a few packs. I squished it in there. And I'm just doing this just so when you look at it, you don't see that white, even though the wood's not really white, but you don't see that wood look. Okay, so let me go over on this edge. I've used Sharpies. I don't know if I said Sharpies, but I use Sharpies. Yeah, this marker's just pretty much done. trying to get the last little bit of juices out of it, huh? And you can see with this plywood, let me show you another thing. I love to use this plywood. It's very lightweight. So if you are making projects and sending them in the mail, very light to ship. However, there are sometimes flaws in this. So for me, I would still be happy sending this to somebody and not worry about it. If you're not comfortable, just know that sometimes with this plywood, there are some flaws. And so sometimes what I will do is if I can't get in there with a marker, like if I can still see too much wood, I'll take a paintbrush with black on it and just kind of clean it up in there. Just go in there and just color it. And then it's almost not even noticeable that that flaw is there. Okay, this is ready for the garbage. Sad looking marker, but it's my favorite. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, so just decide the placement, and sometimes I like to just put them in like a different angle. So just decide where you want to put it on your little pumpkins. Sometimes I try to do make maybe a different placement than this one. So if they are sitting side by side next to each other, maybe I'll do this. So I think maybe I'll do that on both of them. Just put a little bit of glue where you want it. I'm going to move it up just a little bit. Okay, that's it, finished. So in my other videos, I think I started to say, but I don't know if I finished, but I started to tell you about how I do these little tags. And again, they're just a quick and easy tag. And I show them almost all the videos that I do because a lot of my projects have these tags on them, which are so cute. They just add a fun little detail. And then I love to add just a little bit of ribbon. I used a piece of lace, which I need to go find some more lace because I'm almost out of lace. I like this little skinny lace. It just adds a fun touch, especially for my fall projects. And then it's almost hard to tell all the little pieces that I have here, but it just adds such variety. I use a piece of burlap, just cut a strip, and yeah, it's messy on the edges, and then I take the stick fast and just rub along the top of there. It takes a little bit of time to dry. If you have another glue that dries quicker, maybe something just to seal that end so that the burlap doesn't keep shredding. Shredding is probably not the word, but unraveling. So yeah, so just whatever you can think of to add to these little tags. Fabric is really cute. One of my gals who's paints some of my projects for me, Laura, she adds some fabrics to hers and it's just darling. So this is our fall. Okay, let me show you. I was almost done with fall and I wanted to move on to Christmas, but then I thought of another project. I'm going to tip this up so I can chat with you for a second. Okay. So I was done with my fall. Here's my Halloween stuff behind me. So fun. But I've got a lot of fall stuff in the shop. And I was about done with fall and I was thinking, all done. Time to just focus on Christmas. But then I thought of another idea that I couldn't wait to share, you guys. I just couldn't wait to share. So I painted up a couple of them to show you. And I'm going to paint these tomorrow on a live. Show you how I did it. Look, it's coming. Oh my gosh, what do you think it is? Look. Get that into focus. Caramel apple. Is that the cutest thing ever? So a caramel apple, and this has got nuts all over it. And I can't wait to show and share with you how I made this. So cute. So this caramel apple will come in 3 different sizes, and I will get it into the shop tonight. It won't have painted photos yet, but I'll get it in the shop tonight. And look how fun that is, you guys. This is the caramel apple, and I have another surprise coming. with the caramel apple. There's another little apple that I'm going to do with it, and I'm going to show you tomorrow. So excited. I'll show you how I do all of this nutty stuff on here. It's pretty easy. I can't wait to share. So anyway, thanks for joining me, you guys. I hope that you love the pumpkins and the gourds. And I think they turned out so cute. I just love them. Do you love them too? Oh my gosh, these will be perfect for your craft fairs that you will be doing. They're quick and easy to paint. Anyway, I hope you love them. I love them. And I hope you have a great night. And I have more stuff to come and share. So come follow me so you can see the new stuff that I have, new stuff that we're adding to the shop. And just excited to share, you guys. Have a great night. Bye.